Commissioner Hill is absent with notice. Vice Chair Papp,
Here.
Chair Beamsterfer,
Here. All right, and now we will go ahead and do flag salutes and prayer. So we're going to do flag salutes first. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dear Lord, I thank you for bringing us here tonight, and I pray for, Lord, I pray for the Middle East right now with Israel, and I pray for the outcome in our own troops and our own country. I pray for our decision-making today, and I thank everybody that's present. In your name we pray, amen. Agenda item 4 is public comment period for items not on the agenda. Are there any members present or would like to comment or on via Zoom?
Chair, I don't show anyone requesting to speak, and I did not receive any e-comments.
Okay, with no comments, we'll move on to agenda item 5A, approval of minutes for the meeting of March the 2nd, 2020, March or April? Okay. Approval of the minutes of the meeting of April 2nd, 2024. Does the commission have any questions or comments? May I ask for a motion, please?
I move to approve the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting of April 2nd, 2024.
I second. And that motion passes. Item 6A, presentation from the city attorney on the Browns Act.
Good evening, commissioners, staff. I will be doing a brief training on the Brown Act, and I'm going to touch lightly on some planning commission rules and procedures. A lot of this can be redundant, so apologize if it's boring. We have a disclaimer, and we're going to go over, this is the part 1. We'll be discussing the Brown Act overview, which is the Brown Act, history of the Brown Act, meetings, agendas and notice, closed sessions, and enforcement. What is the Brown Act? As you all may know, the Brown Act is a state law that establishes the procedural framework for members of the local governmental decision-making bodies to openly meet, debate, and act. The purpose is to promote transparency and public participation in local government. A little bit of a background in history. The government officials are elected by the people. They represent the people and govern on behalf of the people. Under Government Code Section 54950, the people of this state do not yield their sovereignty to the agencies which serve them. The people in delegating authority do not give their public servants the right to decide what is good for the people to know and what is not good for them to know. Who does the Brown Act cover? The Brown Act covers all legislative bodies. For the cities, this includes the city council, any advisory and standing subcommittees created by the city council. The Brown Act also covers resident boards and commissions, such as the Planning Commission. And for special districts, this includes the boards of directors, along with any subcommittees created by the board. Individuals are subject to the Brown Act upon appointment or election, even if they have not yet assumed office. Meetings and conduct. What is a meeting? A meeting occurs when a majority of the members of the legislative body are present at the same time and place to hear, discuss, or deliberate the business of the council. Government Code Section 54952.2. This includes the use of technology and it is interpreted broadly. There are limited exceptions to the definition of a meeting. Things that are not considered a meeting are conferences, training, workshops, community forums, and meetings of other governmental bodies, social or ceremonial occasions, provided that the majority of the members do not discuss among themselves other than as part of a scheduled program agency business. What are prohibited meetings? A majority of a body may not use a telephone, fax machine, email, an intermediary such as Facebook or Instagram, or any other method to discuss, deliberate, or take action. A serial meeting, outside a noticed and public meeting, is a series of communications of any kind, directly or through intermediaries to discuss, deliberate, or take action, each of which involves less than a majority of the body, but when taken together involves the majority. So be careful of reply all on your emails, because a reply all is technically giving everyone your opinion, and it could be misconstrued as a violation of the Brown Act. A little bit more about emails. Because of the informal nature of the email communication, it is ripe for inadvertent Brown Act violations. Same with text and social media platforms. Technical devices and platforms may serve to allow for a majority of the members to discuss, deliberate, or take action on matters before them. So even a like on an Instagram posting can be considered pretty much a Brown Act violation. It could be potentially one. Another type of prohibited meeting is something called a chain meeting, where member A contacts member B, then member B contacts member C, and then so on. Member C contacts member D until a quorum has discussed, deliberated, or taken action on an item within the body's subject matter jurisdiction. So it is considered a chain reaction. Another prohibited meeting is a hub and spoke, which is pretty much, you can think of a wheel. When a person acts as the hub of a wheel, so member A, and communicates individually with various spokes, so members B, C, and D, a serial meeting has occurred and is in violation of the Brown Act. But there are acceptable communications, such as attorney-client communications. So if you wanted to reach out to me, that's acceptable. One-way communication by staff to individual members, individual contacts by a member with constituents, staff, consultants, or a colleague. Meetings, as far as for the public's concerned, meetings must be accessible to the public. They must be usually held in the location within the agency's boundaries. Meetings must be held in an ADA accessible location. Agency, city cannot require attendees to sign an attendance sheet or even identify themselves as a condition of attendance. However, you may request this information. They're just not required to do it. It continues. Meetings must involve the public. There's restrictions on public comment must be reasonable and may include time limits. So for our planning commission, it is 3 minutes. Criticism of the agency cannot be prohibited. The public is permitted to record or broadcast the proceedings so long as the activity is not disruptive, and the public must have access to copies of all backup material. There are types of meetings. So a regular meeting, such as the one that we have tonight, a regular meeting occurs on normally scheduled days of the board. For example, the first and third Wednesdays. For Hemet's Planning Commission, it's every other Tuesday. A regular meeting may cover any item within subject matter jurisdiction of the board and must include public comment for items not on the agenda. Continuing on, did it move forward? Regular meeting. Okay. There's another type of meeting, which is called a special meeting, which is a meeting other than a regular meeting. These are oftentimes set on days separate from a regular meeting day to discuss specific topic in depth, such as the budget. A special meeting may cover any item within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board, but does not need to include public comment for items not on the agenda. And we have another type, which is called an adjourned meeting. It's either a regular or a special meeting that is reconvened after being properly adjourned to a new date. So if you recall, last month, we had an adjourned meeting due to technical difficulties. Therefore, these are the four possible types of meetings: regular meeting, which could be an adjourned regular meeting, which is what we had last month, a special meeting to an adjourned special meeting. Agendas. Agendas are important because they provide notice, which is essential to the public's ability to monitor and participate in governmental decisions. The public must have knowledge of what is going to be discussed and when. Notice is given by a posted agenda. The agenda is posted in a public place on an agency's website and mailed to persons who request notice. Regular meetings, the agenda must be posted at least 72 hours in advance of a regular meeting under Government Code 54954.2A. Adjourn meetings, when a meeting is adjourned, the meeting is adjourned to a time and place specified in the order of the adjournment. If the meeting is adjourned for less than 5 days, there is no requirement that a new agenda be posted, but the order of adjournment should be posted within 24 hours. We're going to go on to special meetings and emergencies. Emergencies are very unlikely for the Planning Commission, but for special meetings, the agenda must be posted at least 24 hours in advance. For items not on the agenda, the body is generally prohibited from discussing items not on the agenda. However, unless the majority decides there's an emergency situation, or 2/3 of the members present determine that there is an immediate need to take action, and the need came from the attention of the city subsequent to the agenda being posted, when the item appeared on the agenda for an adjourned meeting from less than 5 days prior. Continues, members of the board and staff may briefly respond to comments or questions made by the public during the public comment, even though the item is not on the agenda. The council members may also direct or Planning Commission the issue to staff, provide brief factual information, or refer the item to a future agenda. Members may also make a brief announcement and report on their own activities, which we normally do at the end of our meetings. What is required on the agenda? It must contain a brief description of every item to be discussed. While brief, the description should be clear enough to be understood. Regular meeting agenda must include time for public comment. Closed sessions, not particularly applicable to the Planning Commission, but I just wanted to give you just this information. It's limited to personnel issues, pending litigation, labor negotiations, and real property acquisitions, which is the city council is the one that hears this. This gives you a brief understanding of what a closed session is. Enforcement. Civil enforcement and cure demands. If an agency acts in a matter that's perceived to be in violation of the Brown Act, the following may occur. Either the DA or any interested person can seek judicial determination that the action was improper. Prior to judicial determination, a request may be made to cure the alleged defect, which is the most popular option. If the defect is cured, then any request for judicial determination will be denied. Criminal enforcement and closed session. So if a member participates in improper action under the Brown Act with wrongful intent to deprive the public of information, then the violation would constitute a criminal misdemeanor. A judge may order an agency on the record to audio tape closed sessions so that they may be reviewed in camera to ensure compliance going forward. I haven't experienced that. Hopefully I don't have to experience that, but that's very unlikely. And we're moving on to part 2, the Planning Commission rules and procedures. This is a very brief skeletal review, just some few pointers. The Planning Commission. The Hemet Planning Commission was created in accordance with the State Planning Act. City of Hemet Planning Commission, as you know, consists of 5 members appointed by the City Council. A quorum of transaction of business shall be 3 members. Planning Commission duties. The Planning Commission acts as an advisory board to the main governing body of all planning and development issues. The Planning Commission assures the general plan is implemented by reviewing development applications on a case-by-case basis. The Planning Commission functions as a decision-making body for many proposals. Conduct of a public hearing. This list is generally on all of our agenda items. So for public hearings, this is the order that we go. I'll start with recusals and conflict statements. That's not written on there, but I'm sure that you guys are all aware of that. I just wanted to list that just for additional knowledge. Staff presentation of the project, commission questions of staff, chairman opens the public hearing, comments from the public, commission questions the applicant, and we go on. But we'll go back to recusals. Most often occurs when there's a conflict under the State Political Reform Act. If you have a conflict, you cannot participate in the decision at all. In fact, you cannot even attempt to influence the matter through city staff or official colleagues. This is true for all matters on the agenda, not just public hearings. So the best practice is if you feel like there may be a potential conflict, just if you don't know, it's best to leave the room. Obviously, you can come to me before when the agenda is posted and we can discuss it a little bit further because depending on the facts. When do I have a conflict? This is pretty much beyond the scope of this presentation, but I just wanted to point out for the purposes of this situation is that it's always to refer back to if you have a financial interest in the matter before the legislative body, that is usually a conflict. A common example that is very general is if you own property within 500 feet of an area that is subject to your body's decision, you most likely have a conflict. Best thing is to do is raise any possible conflict early and well before the meeting. You can reach out to me and we can discuss it a little bit further depending on the facts. A conflict usually entails extremely complex laws that apply differently to every situation. So in certain situations, it may seem like there's a conflict. However, depending on the facts, we could just unpeel the onion, pretty much sitting, and that's an analogy that it could not be a conflict. Of course, you can always ask FPPC, and there's their direct number. The premise behind due process is the notice and opportunity to be heard by a fair and impartial hearing. There are some issues that can arise under due process is if there's an extra meeting contacts with developers and citizens. The best thing to do is to avoid initiation of contact, so don't be the first one that initiates it. If you have contact, be polite and avoid stating your viewpoint. At hearing, enter into record any information which will be relevant to the hearing, such as a site visit or a meeting. Of course, there's always an exception to this. So if there's a restoration of views where there's foliage is a factor, it does require the planning commissioners to go out and inspect the site prior to the public hearing. Motions. As you know, actions upon an order, resolution, ordinance, or any other action of the commission may be proposed by any commissioner by a motion. A few things to note, the chair may make a motion only after all members have had an opportunity to make a motion on the question. And before a motion may be considered, it must be seconded. Common actions are findings by the Planning Commission, which is a statement of fact which explains the basis of a Planning Commission decision on any matter of which state law of city ordinance requires the preparation of written findings. The staff report will contain written findings. Any motion rejecting the proposed findings should include a statement of alternative or modified findings, or should continue the matter for a reasonable amount of time to allow staff to prepare a new set of findings. A little bit on voting. There may be a simple consensus or a vote by roll call. A commissioner abstaining due to reasons of conflict for purposes of the item under consideration shall not be considered for purposes of a quorum. And then there's tie votes, which is very rare, but the tie votes shall be lost motions unless an additional motion is made that obtains a majority vote to break the tie. All in all, best practices are to think fairness and merit-based decision-making in your decisions. Planning commissioners are a team, and avoid committing or commenting before the public hearing. And thank you for your participation. You can always reach out to me directly if you have any specific facts or questions. I'll be happy to address them in a timely fashion. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Attorney Swery. Does the commission have questions for our city attorney? The only one I have is kind of weird you mentioned Instagram likes.
Hmm.
So give me an example of what is okay and what is not okay.
Let's say there's a proposal coming forth for, I don't know, a drive-through. We'll say Miguel's Jr., because we're always talking about Miguel's Jr. And so the developer is posting something, and before it's even brought to the commission, Commissioner Clark puts a like, Commissioner Beamsnerfer puts a like, Commissioner Pat puts a like. There's 3. So Commissioner Ochoa didn't have an opportunity to like it. However, 3 of you have. So that's considered a majority, and there's a decision making. So
Anything future?
Correct.
Upcoming.
correct. So yeah, it's an interesting one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll give her time to sit back down here so she can give us the city attorney reports. All right, 7A, city attorney reports.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And moving on to item 7B, community development reports. Director Monique.
Evening, commissioners. I just wanted to report on a couple items. This evening, in your agenda packet, was a memorandum that just requests receive and file follow-up action items or inquiries from the commission from previous planning commission meetings. So moving forward, we want to be responsive to the planning commission when there's questions that arise that we need follow-up on. If I have not responded to those comments or inquiries, please let me know, and I'll make sure that I include it on a memorandum to the planning commission, and it'll be in part of your packet. Also, I just recently attended the American Planning Association's National Planning Conference in Minneapolis. And this is a national conference for planning professionals. And it's the largest conference in the chapter. It was, 4,000 of my closest colleagues. And I really enjoyed learning, and this is where I go to learn. Minneapolis is highly friendly with bike transportation, and it was fabulous to see the connectivity and the transportation, the bike paths throughout the community that can really connect the community and really change the dynamics of the city. So I was really excited about that. There was also classes on connecting parks and housing. These are some of the topics that are discussed. Project management for planners, managing our projects moving forward. Also, as part of my responsibility in the codes of conduct for American Institute for Certified Planners is ethics training. So I did take a class on that. And then one of the highlights, interesting, was the Gen Z Urbanist programming for tomorrow's city through youth-oriented centric planning. So our Gen Z, they want to be at the table. They want us to hear what they would like to see in programming and participate. So that concludes my report.
Interesting what they had to say. All right, moving on to item 7C, future agenda items. Director Monique.
For you, it's going to get a little bit busy here towards the summertime and into the summertime and into the fall. We do have the environmental justice element and safety element that will be coming forward in public hearing fashion. We have a Freddy's Custard drive-through, JD Fields pipe and fab development, as well as High Point Community Apartments, is among other applications that'll be coming your way. for agenda items at this time.
Thank you very much. And item 7D, Planning Commissioner reports. Director Monique.
Commissioner Clark,
Nothing at this time.
Commissioner Ochoa,
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Hill, oh, Commissioner Hill, that's it. Vice Chair Pap.
A couple of things. I just wanted to point out that we are in Ramona season. I believe the first performance is this weekend. If you've never seen it, I highly recommend going out. It's quite a display. A lot of volunteers that don't get paid for their time go out there and help put the production together every year. So if you have an opportunity, this is the 101st season. They lost a couple of seasons due to COVID, but it's been the longest running outdoor play, I believe, in history, and it is official play of the state of California. Tells the story of, well, I'm sure you all know. If you have an opportunity, go see it. I also have a couple of questions about some projects that I've noticed in town that have been taking a long time to get to their occupancy. So I thought I'd just ask about a couple of projects because I read things on Facebook and I'd like to get the real story. Dave's Hot Chicken, for one. And then secondly, I believe it's the L&L Market on Stetson, where there's also a fueling station. That's been under reconstruction for several years, and it looks like they might be getting close. I was just wondering if you have any opportunity to elaborate on those two.
Yes, so what I could do is follow up, but what I do know is from the Dave's Hot Chicken, I think it had something to do with water connection, and I'll follow up just to verify, but it was I think it was a utility connection that they're waiting on. And then the L&L Market, that's also been in plan check for quite some time, and they were working through that, that site as well. But let me come back and I will advise the Planning Commission by email and then also follow up through our memorandum correspondence.
Very much. That's all I have for this evening.
Chair Beamsterfer?
And the only thing I have is more of a question, just like Vice Chair Pap, is some people are coming up to me over time, it's not been recently, but asked me about the cannabis with Hemet. They know they have to go to San Jacinto, and they're just asking about when Hemet's going to be getting involved so that the tax money can come here and not there. Other than that, nothing else to report. And with there being no further business to discuss, this meeting will be adjourned to the Planning Commission meeting scheduled for May 7, 2024 at 6 p.m.